Sorry, Mr. Simmons. Ms. Schroeder's voice is a little softer than Michael's.
Sorry. I'll try and speak up.
For a second, I'm sorry.
That's all right. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Schroed, and I am filling in this evening for Michael Spellman as Chief Negotiator. I think we'll go around the room and everyone can introduce themselves. If anyone has an issue hearing me, just let me know and I'll try to speak up.
Tyson Vilwalk, Director of Professional Standards for the district.
Carter Morrison, Assistant Superintendent Finance for the district.
Don Calderon, Director of Risk Management and Employee Benefits for the school district.
Jeff Raymond, Principal at Indiantown Middle School, representing the district.
Julie Sessa, Assistant Superintendent HR, representing the district.
Pat Holt, MCEA.
Susan Rayo, MCEA.
Lonnie Barch, MCEA.
Karen Restaniti, President, Martin County Education Association.
Gary Simmons, Chief Negotiator for Martin County Education Association, FEA.
Matt Theobald, Martin County High School, MCEA.
Maurice Bonner, Director of Human Resources for the district.
Okay. So I know Michael always starts with a little summary of where we were from our last bargaining session. That was bargaining session number 3. That was held on October 18th here at the Stewart Learning Center. So where we left off, with respect to the memorandum of agreement regarding the millage referendum, the district submitted a counter proposal to MCEA's proposal, which in large part accepted all of your previous proposal, and then provided circumstances which would require the parties to renegotiate the MOA. The circumstances that we discussed included possibilities which could negatively impact the district's financial condition. These were including if revenue generated by the millage referendum renewal decreases, could be the filing of any future lawsuit, entry of any order or decree of a state or federal court or administrative body, or the enactment of any law, rule, or regulation by any state or local authority, any new legislation, which we know has been coming frequently, or if the general economic conditions change. So we inserted that language into the MOA. The union took the district's counter proposal under advisement. We are expecting a response to that this evening. The district also made a monetary counter proposal to the union. It included provisions for performance pay, which set out for annual contract personnel a performance pay of $1,200 for highly effective and $600 for effective. And then for PSCs, professional services contract personnel, it was $600 for highly effective and $300 for effective. As we advised the union, the amounts derived came from a raise pool of approximately $1.3 million. The monetary proposal also included a counter proposal regarding the TSIA allocation dollars with the table attached to the counter proposal and with a total value of $1.9 million, which is inclusive of benefits. And then we also have Article 8, which was opened by the district, and it remains open, but it's my understanding that you just needed an extra week to review it. We do have a signed copy ready for your signature this evening.
All right. Well, with respect to the salary proposal, we have some discussions about that. We're definitely not ready to sign off on anything related to the salary. With respect to today's order, I would like to begin with the millage proposal, and then we'll segue into our salary proposal. So the first thing that we wanted to do, we wanted to wait until Carter was present, because we had a couple of questions and concerns with the millage proposal, and we wanted to get those questions answered before we make any agreements or possibly offer a counter proposal. So we have a couple of questions, and I'm confident that you'll be able to assist us on it. So if we can refer back to the district's counter proposal that was issued in session number 3 on October 18th, 2022. There's a couple of questions that my team would like to get clarification on. And this would begin with line number 24, the first sentence beginning with the supplement. So that reads, the supplement will be paid out in paychecks for the 2023-2024 school year rather than in a lump sum. Now, we know that we presented a proposal for the millage, and we were asking for it to come out of the remaining paychecks and not in a lump sum. What we wanted to make sure before we continue with that premise is how it will affect the payout. So if we would do this millage supplement, this millage payment over the paychecks, this language says 2023, 2024. When would the payouts begin according to the way that this current memorandum is structured?
It will begin on the first paycheck in the new fiscal year. School usually starts around August 11th or so. Then we would be able to begin somewhere on August 15th. I think that's the calendar for the 196 begins.
And that's 2023?
Yeah.
So if we're proposing it to be paid out over paychecks versus a lump sum, would that change if we were to get in a lump sum? When would the estimated payout be if it was a lump sum request?
I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
All right, so we were asking for us to have this paid out over the remaining paychecks instead of a lump sum.
Right.
And the result of that request would lead to payouts beginning in next fiscal year around August of 2023.
Yeah.
If we were negotiating and we wanted to keep it as a lump sum, when would those payments be paid out?
In reference to the current agreement that we have,
Right.
we have a September agreement where by September 1st you get the rates as established in the expired agreement, I guess I would refer it to. And then in December you have a true-up of the balance, whatever the balance is, then we distribute amongst the members at that point. In contrast with this agreement, we would, instead of paying out a lump sum in September, it would be spread out over the 26 pays beginning that first paycheck according to the payroll calendar in 23-24.
But if it were one lump sum, then it would be paid out in September of '23, correct, for this current year?
If the request was a lump sum, it's your language what you would propose, then it would be similar to what we're doing now.
But it would be '23, not
23-24.
a whole year later. Because when we first proposed this, we were under the assumption that it could be attained January of 20.
We had, at the time, that was the understanding, but obviously that has changed.
Okay. Okay.
So the intent is to spread it, the intent of this language is to spread it out over the 26 beginning next year.
Right, but we didn't have any intentions on delaying any payments to our members, so we want to make sure that if we're proposing to get it spread out over the paychecks, and it would ultimately lead to our members being delayed of receiving said award dollars, then that would be something that we'd have to deeply reconsider. And that's why we wanted clarification on it, because if lump sum means that our members get it in a quicker time frame, then we'd be more inclined to stick with that.
I'm not sure it would be if I'm understanding what you're asking, I'm not sure if it would be a quicker time frame. You would get, if we were to, let's say, theoretically revert to what you're doing now, then you would receive a portion of it, usually the major portion of it, in the first payment, and then the true-up in December. What we're proposing to do is to spread it over the 26, but I'm not sure where the delay comes in. That's what I'm...
Because it's a whole year later.
You're still withholding the money.
The delay would be that it's September 1st, you would get your one lump sum payout. You might get it August 18th or August 23rd. You might get 1/26 of that
Right.
payout, but
Right.
so it would be delayed because 2 weeks later, you could get the whole full amount where
Okay.
every 2 weeks, you're going to give us little
Okay,
pieces.
I understand your thought process, okay.
So in essence, if we did the payments over 20 paychecks starting January,
January calendar 23?
yeah, then the teachers would be getting the money sooner rather than later in September.
Right.
But if doing it over 26 pays, they wouldn't get it for another year, then it's
But
delayed.
I think the position, and I can't speak for the board, is that, but for 22, 23, you've already received your first payment, you're going to get the second one in December of this year, so that covers fiscal 22, 23 money that we collected last year. That's what we've been doing for the last 4 years. So that covers and takes care of 22, 23. For 23, 24, it is the same principle, because at the time when we discussed it the last time, there was some concern that, and I think Matt had asked a question about it, that, hey, would we make sure that we have collected all the money by June of that fiscal year, because we were paying it in the year that we collected it. So that was sort of a concern there, at least on my part. So the language has changed based on direction that we've received, that we should commence the payments over 26 in 23, 24. So the first payment would start on the first paycheck in 23, 24, right around that August timeframe.
Any other questions? So we'll have to discuss that in caucus and decide how we're going to move forward with that. It should require a brief discussion. So I want to move on to the salary schedule proposal. For the counter proposal to the monetary proposal that the district presented. I'll let them pass it out. Something that went below them first.
You don't give it to me, I'll pass it out when you do it already. Yeah. Do our spiel first.
So we had a little less than a week to discuss the salary proposal, and we wanted to offer a counter proposal and address our intent, the intent behind the counter proposal that we're presenting. So again, I know that I've said this in a couple of our previous sessions, but what I'm about to say is not intended for the individuals in this room. It's intended for the school board, and at this point, I'm going to address them as such. So the TSIA dollars presented a lot of challenges. And it was financial challenges and mental challenges as well. The mental challenges comes from us affectionately calling the TSIA the governor's money, when in actuality, tens of thousands of educators across the state caravaned to Tallahassee in January of 2020 to ask the state's legislators to make public education a priority and pay these members as such. But we constantly see it being referred to as money that the state just conveniently decided to give us. So we dealt with that, barely even mentioned it on record. And then what happened is the resulting legislation created such disparities in the way that it was implemented. We have educators that dedicated decades of their adult working lives to educating the children in their community, only to see those brand new to the profession catch up to them in a record amount of years, and in some situations move past them. Out of all of our employees, the PSC employees were hit the hardest. We've had discussions on the parameters and the restraints that the legislation for the TSIA language put us in. And we strive, even in the last bargaining session, through 23 sessions, to ultimately get the 47.5 to get the state off of our back. We've had numerous meetings with our members in executive board meetings and emails and telephone calls where they were angry, and rightfully so. But what we did was we consciously and intently explained to our members that this is no fault of the school board. They're not dictating the way that this money is implemented. We had members that wanted to come to school board meetings and voice their frustrations. We had members that wanted to write letters to the editor to voice their frustration. We asked them to be patient and allow this process to play out and get the $47,500 and relieve some of these restraints. We've been very vocal from the very beginning of this TSIA implementation, and it's memorialized by the fact that I began this position right when this money was beginning to be issued. And in every session, we talked about the restraints, the inequity of the raises, and what was the ultimate plan to make it more equitable. So we come into this bargaining session and we place a proposal on the table with distribution to the millage. And when we put that proposal on the table, we explained our intent was to try to close the gap that was created through the TSIA applications that left many of our members, specifically our professional service contract members, at the same salary as brand new teachers to the profession. So we attempted to close that gap. And then we get to last week's bargaining session and we see that gap increase a little bit more. And the part that was difficult to understand, or that I pondered on for the most part of our time between this session and last session, was that when the district responded to our millage proposal, they said that they didn't want to carve professional service contract employees out. But yet, in the monetary counter proposal, that's exactly what the school board did. Carved them out and singled them out of all of the professionals in our bargaining unit to get the lowest pay for performance raise out of everyone, including those outside of our bargaining unit as well. But I was taught to assume good intention. That's what I was raised to do. I built my character on that. Never jump to any broad conclusions. For Pete's sake, we're in bargaining. We're in a bargaining session. So I came here today with the understanding that this is bargaining and the district is starting low and we started high, right? So now we're at $600 for highly effective for professional service contracts, and we're at $300 for effective under professional service contracts. Now, I think the part that I want the school board to hear incredibly loud is that based off of the mathematics that Carter produced, we have 304 professional service contract members that are in our bargaining unit. And they make up a large part of our membership. What we have to remember is that in order for this process to be successful and we close out the books for 2022, 2023, these proposals have to be ratified by our members. And there's no way in the world that our members are going to ratify a proposal in which they only receive a $600 raise and a $300 raise when their counterparts are receiving $1,200 and $600. So what we're going to present today is the response from the school board is going to tell us loud and clear. I won't have to assume good intentions anymore because I'd have a clear understanding of what this board is trying to do. I've had conversations with many of my colleagues who represent 60 counties across this great state of Florida, and some school boards are incredibly intentional with their ideas for professional service contracts. They're trying to create incentives for annual contracts so that some of their staff members would leave their professional service contracts and revert to annual contracts. And in some counties, specifically Collier County, this week was very vocal about that very same fact. I'm not jumping to the conclusions of whether that's this school district's intention, but if we continue to carve out our professional service contracts and make their road to equitable raises much more difficult, we'll have no other alternative but to jump to that conclusion. So what we're going to pass out, if you can, Matt, is our counter proposal. Just to recap, our initial proposal proposed $2,000 and $1,500 straight to the base salary. There was no performance pay associated with that figure. And it's not surprising to me that the district, the district offered a counter proposal and they went forward with the pay for performance models, same as it was in the agreement that we signed off on August 1st. So we believe that this proposal, coupled with the figures that's been agreed upon in principle on the millage proposal, would do a lot to close that gap between our professional service contract members and our annual contract members. With respect to the math, Carter, your just on a side note, I'm learning so much from reading your formulas, and I'm starting to get a grasp of it. But I attempted to cost this out in preparation, but it was just some of the formulas I wasn't advanced enough to make it out of. So we have 1,800 in the highly effective, right. And then we know that the legislation, and you eloquently explained it on your spreadsheet, that we have a range of 50 to 75%. So
on the PSC side.
Right, on the PSC side, right? So we started with 1,800 for highly effective, and we wanted to keep the numbers for the annual contract within like the $300 increments for the different steps, et cetera, so we could do the math a little bit easily, but highly effective. And then we took the initial district's proposal, took 50% of 1,200 to give 600 to effective. What we did was we took a little bit less than 75%. So 75% of 1,800 is 1,350. Yep, so we put it to 1,200. So that still should be within the constraints. But highly effective is 1,350, which is exactly 75% of 1,800, yep. And then effective is 1,150, which is exactly 75% of 1,350. So when it comes to the math portion of it, we have 631, and then on your chart, that rate would be 1,800, and then that math would be 0.75 times 84 for line number 4. So I'm going to need you to punch those numbers in and get the exact cost out. But I'm very much aware that these numbers are a little bit short of what we proposed prior with 2,000 and 1,500 to all of our bargaining unit members. So with this, I think we accomplished a couple of things. First, we continue to close that gap between professional service contracts and annual contracts, and we value those educators. And as we saw in the millage proposal, that these are our 14-plus year veterans in most cases. So we do think that they deserve a four-figure amount with their raise as well as everyone else did. So we're asking them to strongly consider that because we believe that this would pass through ratification of our over 300 professional service contract members who have voiced their concerns and their frustrations on the proposal that was presented last week. And we do have additional language that we added in line number 32, and I'll read it for the record. It says, "No current instructional employees shall receive less than the current instructional salary schedule for initial placement based on years of experience, even if the employee's current base plus applicable performance pay sums to a lesser amount." So we've included that language because we wanted to prevent any leapfrogging in our salary schedule. That would just present another hurdle that we would have to climb over, already taking into consideration the disparity of raises between our professional service contract members and veteran teachers and the TSIA application. So we're prepared to answer any questions with respect to the proposal in front of you.
So I just, may I?
Absolutely.
So I just sent you an email with the spreadsheet. I just plugged in your numbers for you. The 1,800 highly effective, the 1,200 as effective, and I'm not quite sure that the 1,200 would comply with statute, but I'll go back and check because that's, in my notes, I had it as 50% of highly effective, where that would not be 50% of that 1,800, but we'll check on that.
Okay.
The 1,300 works because that is 75% of that 1,800, which then the 50% of highly effective, which you've given me 1,200, which we're not sure of either, is 1,150. But I just plugged in the numbers for you. So after plugging in, maybe it's better if I throw it up on the screen, I guess. Let me try to do that.
Okay.
Because reading it out loud might not give you a better...
Oh, well, I just have my spreadsheet. I was just plugging it in.
Sure.
Carter, which numbers are you saying you don't know if are right?
The portion on the annual contract effective, which then drives the PSC effective. So we'll double check on that.
I understand what you're saying.
It really doesn't affect professional services contract.
Yeah. Can I fill out the two places?
We talked about it last night.
Maybe.
And we thought it was going to be.
All right, let me save it and close it.
Yes.
What you have here should be the same thing that I'm going to put up on the screen.
Okay.
Did you get a file from me? Gary?
A second ago? Let's see.
You look my sent folder.
Yep, I did.
Got it?
I did. Thank you.
Can someone at the back just probably get one of the lights to dim it a little bit so we can... Yeah, that's the V3. Looks about right. So just referring back to your proposal, just for as a frame of reference, that In the salary proposal that we received, this is the spreadsheet, the range of the estimate was $1 million to $1.5 million. Based on our counter, and I've updated this so this does not reflect the original counter that we did last session. And I probably could open it up here. We were at 1.3. And where we got to the 1.3 was this was the original proposal we made, 12, 6, 6, and 3, which would get you at 1.1. I believe that was passed out at the table. But there was a notation that we had 152 new hires, that only 14 of them had turned in their performance evaluation. So for budget purposes, we assume that they're all AC and highly effective. I mean, we know from a budget perspective, plus benefits. So we would be around 1.3. So you had proposed between $1 million and $1.5 million. We came in at 1.3 theoretically. With what we have on the table now, I just call it V3, version 3. And again, we have to double check this number because I believe it drives this number, but again, we'll double check with the lawyers. You would see that we would be at 1.9 million, and then when you include the 138 that could potentially show up with evaluations, assuming they're all AC, who knows, we'll be at 2.2 million. So that's way north of even your own proposal. But we'll discuss it in conference. But I did send it to you so you can kind of take a look at where the numbers were. So these are the numbers you changed. I just plugged them in. Okay? I'm just going to leave it locked because I might have to come back and show something. Can you get the light at the back, please, anyone? Thank you. Excuse me.
While there's a lull, you know, I was looking over some stuff, and I noticed that in April of 2022, with the allocation of TSIA money that year, Florida ranked 16th in the nation as far as with regards to new teacher pay. The allocation that we received and MCEA and the school district negotiated last year, we jumped from 16th all the way up to 15th. But in that whole time, the average teacher salary in the state of Florida remained stagnant at 48%. And what this tells me is that statewide, our leaders aren't doing enough for all of their employees. And we recognize that as a statewide issue, but our leaders here in Martin County, you know, we're asking them, like Gary said, to consider all of our employees here in this county, and we're asking the board to do what's right by all of our employees. And this proposal, given what Carter said, you know, it's our belief that it at least helps in that regard. And I just wanted to add my 2 cents on that.
And when you talk about people perhaps being enticed to leaving professional services to go off and get those bigger raises, they're going to get off the professional services contract, they're going to go to Palm Beach and make $10,000 more. I just had a teacher who said insurance for her and her husband was $89. She showed me her paycheck, $89. And in Martin, she said it was like 3 and change. So because of all of this TSIA money, people who are on the newer side, they have nothing to give up. They have their annual, but people who have been here 15, 20 years, they go to Palm Beach, it's 15 grand more.
So, Carter, I want to help you out with our intent with respect to the proposal that we placed on the table
Sure.
the last time. So, the initial proposal that we placed was giving between 1,500 and 2,000 across the
Right.
base for everyone. Now, this wasn't performance
Correct.
based. So what we were looking at was making a proposal that wasn't based on performance. The same thing that we did at the beginning of the bargaining session for 21-22.
Right.
So with respect to whether our numbers are high or not, the highest portion of our proposals was dedicated to that yellow column that's just the increase. If the district isn't interested in applying an increase directly to the base without it being performance-based, we would ask them to not just restrict that number, then apply the number that we wanted directly for the increase to the pay for performance. What ours was trying to do was to apply it directly to the base and then give dollar configurations or allocation just in case the district wanted to do any pay for performance in Mara's last school sessions contract. But if our proposal for the salary increases is not being taken into consideration, we're asking the district to take into consideration that proposal minus the 1.5 million that is being taken out for TSIA and not just restrict us to the figures on the pay for performance estimate, if that makes sense.
Yep. I understand what you mean.
So at this time, we'll respectfully ask to caucus, and we'll be discussing the millage proposal and allow you all to discuss the monetary proposal, and if you have any questions for us with respect to that afterwards. Is that a respectable request?
Just a quick question before we go into caucus. Where are we with Article 8?
We were, in our previous discussions, we were ready to sign off on Article 8, but we punted it to this session because Karen wasn't present to physically sign off on it last week.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we can end the session with a bang with that, at least.
Okay, we'll go into caucus.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're back from caucus. Mr. Simmons or Ms. Ressanini, I'd like to hear from you. I know you requested to caucus first, so we'd like to hear a report from your side.
Sure. You want to start with questions with TSIA, or you want to go to the millage?
First, I want to discuss TSIA first. And with respect to our proposal,
Mr. Simmons, are you referencing the Session 2 proposal with the yellow column? I heard you say our proposal, so I wasn't sure.
That's going to come into it, but I think the first document that we have to look at is the proposal that the district put forward last week with the green section.
Thank you.
So I wanted to take a few more minutes in caucus just to work through some concerns that I had with the rest of my team before we addressed the TSIA application. But there's something that I wanted to ask with respect to the way that the money is allocated. So the green section is applying the 1,200 and then 9, 6, and 3, and then everyone else is getting 900. And I wanted to just discuss briefly what happened in other districts once they reached 47.5, and offer that suggestion for this school district with respect to the TSIA application. So most recently in Indian River, we reached 47.5 in 2021. So we were able to apply the TSIA dollars to the salary schedule with very little limitations. The only limitations that we had was the 75% limitation. So what we were able to do, for example, this school district received around 1.5 million allocated from TSIA. In Indian River, they received 1,250,457. Now, how they allocated this was, and let me give this to you, Carter. I got one for you to have, and then I'll follow along on my computer. So what you have in your hands is the actual language that we TA'd on at the top of this month. So allow me to pull mine up real quick. All right, so what they did was they split that 1.2 million, 1,250,457. They split it and they applied 1,165 to the PSC grandfather in classroom, and then the amount to the annual contract non-grandfather was 874. So we see that 874 is 75% of 1165. And then we'll see that same mathematics applied to our non-classroom teachers as well, a split of 1165 to PSC grandfather and 874 to annual contract non-grandfathered. So the way that the district proposed is it's the reverse of the way that we've applied it. And in this proposal, the bulk of those TSIA dollars are still going to the recipients that received raises over the last 3 bargaining sessions for TSIA. So we've reached 47.5, and we have the ability to apply the bulk of those monies to the PSCs on the grandfather, then the PSC non-classroom teachers on the grandfather, and the lesser amount to those that received the higher raises through the TSI application. So I used one of your formulas, Carter, to cost this out with respect to the amount that we were allocated, meaning Martin County School District, the 1.5 million. And what we were able to come up with was something a little bit more flexible and staying within that guideline, right? So professional service contract employees, which is 280, and an additional 24, which brings us up to 304, we can apply $1,360 to that group. And then for our annual contract, 631 bargaining unit members, and an additional 84 that was on effective, we would give them 1,020. So 1,020 is just under 75% of $1,360. And when I plug that into your formula and it adds up all of the fringes, et cetera, we get to $1,499,801.78. So it's just a little bit short of the amount of money that was allocated in the TSIA. And going back to what I was stating when we presented the salary proposal, what we're attempting to do is continue to close the gap of disparity in raises between professional service contract members and our annual contract members. If we're able to model the same way that these TSIA dollars were implemented in our neighboring counties and was ultimately approved by the Department of Education, we wanted to apply these figures to TSIA, to the TSIA implementation, and try to close that gap a little bit more without causing an economic hardship with the allocated TSIA dollars that the district received. And I have this prepared in a digital file that I could send it over to you.
And you said that the DOE approved this?
Yes, the DOE approved the implementation in Indian River.
Yes.
I
actually tried to do something like this, and they told me that I was over allocated. So for example, in your the first section, basically your classroom teachers, the first 50% bucket must be used, so that's 625,000. And when I tried to do something similar, where you're showing you're using $1,043,000 basically, they told me that they would not approve it because I was over allocated.
All right, so if that's the situation, again, then at least we'd be able to provide real examples of school districts that were approved applying it in that manner.
So I tried to do something similar, and they said no, they would not approve it. Secondly, for us here, keep in mind that we basically are stratifying two buckets of money. We have the TSIA proposal, which you have in front of you. We also have a separate performance pay proposal, whereas the only leverage that getting to 47.5 does is for you to use the TSIA money for performance pay. So we haven't done that. We've basically kept the raise pool in two separate buckets of money. So has this agreement, if you don't mind my asking, this been TA'd in Indian River? We're ratified and all, wrapped up, DOE approved everything?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe the ratification date is on the top right corner of the first page.
Just as a counter proposal.
Yeah, is it a date on the top?
It says IRCE counter proposal 10/10.
That's the date that we TA'd on, 10/10.
Okay. So this is just a draft, but okay.
Yeah, that's just my notes, but that was my first and only session, so I don't have multiple drafts of that. We got that done rather quickly.
Okay.
And I met with the superintendent yesterday, and he affirmed me that everything was approved and they began the payout process already.
Okay, good. All right. So, just to be clear, are you talking concept, or this would be your counter to us to use the money in this fashion?
That would be the counter for us to use that money in that fashion, and I will memorialize this verbal proposal. I worked on the actual digital one in caucus, so I'll send it to you momentarily.
Sure. Okay. I don't know.
Okay. So Gary, did Indian River also in this same bargaining cycle do a separate pay for performance agreement?
No, well, on the, yeah, it's what happened was when we negotiated their contract, we negotiated multiple years at one time. So they got theirs, and then we agreed upon percentage increases for the subsequent years. Okay. Right. Okay. So the only pay for performance would be what we have in front of us with that TSIA application.
So they used it for performance pay, because they're at 47.5. It does give you that.
Right.
You can do that.
I don't see it.
We kept ours separate.
No, they just got TSIA. Nothing on the SSI.
Okay.
So again, I just wanted to make the record clear with respect to the salary proposal that we presented. So initially, when we presented the salary proposal, it was to increase the base, and it wasn't based on pay for performance. It was just a proposal to put monies to the base. And like I said earlier, that premise was not only rejected this bargaining session, but it was rejected in the last bargaining session as well for 21-22. So with respect to our proposal, if you look at the cost out on the back, the bulk of the financial responsibilities to our proposal was coming from applying that money directly to the base. And again, we wanted to allocate just in case, in addition to that, the district wanted to throw a couple $100s to our bargaining unit members for pay for performance. But since the district is not entertaining putting money directly to the base, I want the record to reflect that we're still requesting that they consider the amount of dollars that we were proposing to that increase. And instead of that increase applying straight to the salary schedule in yellow in our proposal, we're asking that those dollars be considered for the pay for performance increase in our counter proposal. So I just wanted the record to clearly reflect what our request is with respect to that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I don't want to admit I might have.
Yeah, I'm not understanding, I'm not understanding what your proposal is. So we have our performance pay proposal here.
Right.
How does that,
Let me
I'm not
take
sure.
a stab. Did I hear you saying that your session 2
Proposal.
proposal, you're not giving a counter based on this? Instead, these funds are what you would expect
To finance the.
to finance the pay for performance?
Correct. Being that what we proposed in this yellow was not responded to outside of us getting a monetary proposal for pay for performance, we took that as the district isn't interested in reoccurring dollars coming in the shape of being applied directly to the salary schedule. What your proposal told us was that any recurring dollars would have to be based on pay for performance.
Correct.
So being that all recurring dollars is based on pay for performance, we want you to take the figures that we applied to go straight to the salary schedule and use that finance to use those monies to finance our
So
pay
if
for
I can
performance.
just put some numbers at you from your proposal.
Right.
You're saying, you're asking for $2,160,720 to finance the performance pay
Yeah.
proposal, is that?
That would have provided increments of 2,000
Right.
to 1,500. Our proposal is asking for 1,800 and 1,350, so you costed it out to 1.9, if I'm
Right.
recalling
So,
correctly.
So you're saying, I just want to be clear.
You're right.
You gotta go back and tell the school board that you're saying you're asking for, let's just call it $2 million. $2 million to finance performance pay.
Right, the 2 million that we had to apply directly to the salary schedule. If the
Right.
district isn't interested in applying money directly to the salary schedule as reoccurring dollars,
Sure.
then use the money that we applied.
Which is the $2,167,20. Then what about underneath that, where it says 1,007,400, and then on the other side, 1,552,200? Is that still in play?
No, so what we did was, the reason why we made that proposal, I'll give you the justification of those numbers. So the 1,000,
Because that's hard coded in the spreadsheet. I didn't know where it came from.
okay, so I attempted to explain it on a record, but let me go back over it. So the 1,007,400
Right.
was how much that was spent on pay for performance in the 1920 school year. The $1,552,200
Right.
is the highest estimate of $1,300 per employee, which was the average paid to 773 employees in the 1920 school year. So that's what we gave. We gave you the highest end and the lowest estimate. And again, that figure was put in place just in case the district wanted to add pay-for-performance dollars on top of what we were attempting to apply directly to the salary schedule. So if there's no interest in applying it directly to the salary schedule, then we'll just be working with the figures that are allocated under the increase section of that
And then the
cost.
2 million that I costed out, that's what you're saying, this 2 million?
Right, we should fall under that
understand
2
what you're
point.
saying now. Okay.
Okay, good.
Got it.
So the next thing I had was the
And just make sure you send me this one from Indian River, or the format,
Yep,
Okay.
I can definitely do that.
digital, okay.
So the next thing is our millage proposal, counter proposal. So looking at the millage proposal, what we changed on it is that we elected to just stick with the way that we were applying the millage traditionally, and to move to a lump sum payment. Now, you'll see that in the numbering got a little messed up on the formatting, so I apologize for that. But looking at the sentence on the third line, under years of experience, that reads, "The supplement will be paid out in the 2022-2023 school year," and we have to verify whether that's the right dates based on our previous discussion. The supplements will be paid out in the 2022-2023 school year in a lump sum. And we're striking through paid out throughout the remaining paychecks and the district had 2023-2024 school year. So we're reverting back to a lump sum after careful consideration and your explanation in the first half of this bargaining session. The additional language, we mirrored that from the previous millage language, and it reads, "In order to receive an award, a bargaining unit employee must complete the academic year, be renewed for the next academic year in the district. Any instructional employees in the bargaining unit who was non-renewed and rehired, offered and accepted a position in the district, and employed or in processing by September 1st shall be eligible for the MS award. The millage will be paid out within 30 days of entering into the payroll system." And that's the only newly applied language to the millage proposal.
No, there's actually something else. First of all,
Oh.
we left out
Yeah.
that it needs to be paid out on or before September 1st and trued up on December.
Right, that was
15th.
gonna be my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, how
You
do
know
we
what
do
it
this?
was? No, because it was in the next, it was in one of the subsequent paragraphs, and I think when we copied and pasted, it just,
Didn't
So
go over.
Yeah.
also, Karen, the 22-23 school year is right now.
Yeah, so it'll be 23-24.
It would be 23-24.
So it would have to be 22-24.
And the payouts for 22-23
The
is
last-
September and
so
December.
the payout would be
We've already-
September of 23.
Right.
The payout would be.
So you have to change the years there.
Yeah.
All right, I'm working on that now.
No, wait a second, that's not right. So when's the payout? Of
And
23?
then the true-up
Okay.
language also, you want to include that, the same true-up stuff?
Okay.
Yeah, we just want to keep it consistent with a payout on September 1st, 22. The next payout will be September 1st, 23.
Come again? I don't think so.
Any mistake?
Yes. I know.
Can I help you with that?
The first payment for this
Right.
will be September 23,
Correct.
with the
Then the
true-up
true-up in December
Of
of
23.
23.
Right. Did I say 22?
Yes,
Okay.
it's getting late.
I think we just got one on 22. Okay. And then where's the line? In order to receive, okay, so this is where we made a change, and I think everybody will agree this is for the better. In order to receive an award, a bargaining unit employee must complete the academic year, be renewed for the next academic year in the district. Any instructional employee in the bargaining unit who is non-renewed and rehired, offered and accepted a position in the district and employed or in processing by September 1 shall be eligible for the MS award. The millage will be paid out within 30 days of entering into the payroll system. So sometimes we find that there are teachers where there's just a delay in processing, especially at the beginning of the year. There's so many people coming in, but they've accepted a position. Some of them have accepted positions on August 1st, and they don't get their millage because it wasn't processed. Another change we made is instead of it saying renewed for the next academic year in the bargaining unit, we changed it to in the district. The district language had bargaining unit in it, and that prevented someone who taught the whole academic year as a teacher, and then they got a job downtown outside the bargaining unit or as an assistant principal, and they didn't get the millage for the year before, which is the year that they were actually working as a teacher in the bargaining unit. So I know we had discussions over that in labor relations, and I think that language cleans it up.
So if they leave the bargaining unit, then they do not forfeit their right to the millage, from the prior year.
Right, so
Okay.
they wouldn't get it moving forward, but they wouldn't
Sure.
lose out on the year
Sure, sure.
that they were there.
One clarification, because Maurice and I are kind of looking at each other, that we've seen and we've processed folks who were on leave or got missed in the first payment. We've caught them up. I don't know, because you've sent those to my office and said, hey,
What-
this person
what
got
I'm
missed
talk-
on the list, or, yeah, we've done those.
It's more with the non-renewals. So if you
Okay.
had someone who
okay.
was,
Non-renewal, okay.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
mean, I think that was specific to non-renewal. So you had a non-renewal. It
Right.
could be for licensure. It could be that it wasn't a good fit. It could have been, they're
So
getting
you're
rid of
restoring
them.
their rights.
There was a position eliminated, and now they have to find a new job. Well, they were given a non-renewal letter, they were hired
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
We understand that.
Okay,
Right, I get
good.
it.
So, Gary, are you making some edits to this? Okay. Would you consider in that same section, where it says, in processing by September 1st, there is the possibility that somebody could be offered a position, they accept the position, they begin processing by September 1st, and right after they begin processing, September 2nd, they fail the background check, something like that. So just some language to say that they
Meet the eligibility
are then
requirements.
successfully hired, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And subsequently.
Again, it's a rare instance, but when it
It-
happens,
Right.
We've been down this road before with what I'm about to ask, which is the September 1st date. I've privately talked to you about some of the issues that it has created in my payroll department. I've had people had to check out of the hospital
Yes.
just to make sure that teachers got their payment. And so if there's any flexibility that you would consider regarding that September 1st date, would be appreciated.
We may want to consider some kind of weather. This is, I mean, if we're out of school or out of work for something that happens like Ian, we're not going to be able to, we could possibly not be able to meet those 30 days. I mean,
Right.
just thinking out loud that Yeah, it's hurricane
Because it is
season.
hurricane season.
We've had Francis, Jean, right in that week, that time frame before.
So I know that we have the mirror agreements that reflected some of those concerns. I'll revisit
Okay.
that in
Okay.
preparation of sending you this new
Sure,
one.
okay, I appreciate it.
I know we memorialized those concerns in the previous mirror agreement.
Yeah.
So with respect to the date that we have on the books for tomorrow, are we prepared to meet, or do you want us to just take that day to work on these edits and then send those over in preparation for your next executive session?
Yeah, I think at this point, we would like to call the superintendent just to check and see how he would like to proceed. We might need to go back to the board, but can we take 5 minutes to caucus here and give him a call? Yeah. Are you okay with 5 minutes?
Certainly.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, so just before we break, so that we can be clear with superintendent, we have a counter on the millage.
Correct.
We have a counter for the monetary proposal, which covers the pay for performance.
Correct.
And TSIA.
And
TSIA.
that
Because
encompasses the TSIA, so
the
there,
state, just not to, just put on record,
Nope,
the state
perfect.
Yep.
has been contacting me saying, hey, when are we gonna get the
Mhm.
TSIA thing done? And I know you have your collective bargaining rights, and we have to go through that process, but they're pushing me, when am I gonna get the plan? So just so you're aware
So
of that.
our TSIA proposal would flip it.
Yes,
and
you've
then-
you've
and
changed,
then
you've changed the,
And then the
yes,
pay for performance
yes, okay.
on top of that.
Okay,
Okay. And so I guess we'll take 5 minutes also and just discuss a date.
okay.
so to be clear, you are capable of negotiating tomorrow for that?
Yeah, we're ready to
Yeah,
go.
we're all ready.
Okay.
And we can clean this up.
And I was saying, if the district isn't ready, then we can utilize that day to clean some of what we discussed up and turn it over to you guys before your executive session. I think it's scheduled for Monday. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the caucus. I think at this time, we appreciate all of the proposals, but since they are rather detailed, we're going to need some time to take a look at the numbers and the edits that we were discussing, and then have time to talk about it in executive session. One thing we want to be really sure of is that the numbers that you're proposing comply with Florida Statute 1012.22. It is a very tricky statute. I know we all are grappling with trying to figure out all of the numbers and the formulas, so that is something that we will need to do with your proposal as well. So I think we have Article 8 ready to hand over, so hopefully we can get signatures on that. I think, we'll make some progress hopefully on the MOA for next week. We just need to take a look at that language, and hopefully we can have an answer to you. So, Mr. Simmons, if you could send all of those documents over to me and Carter, then we can take a look at them and
Okay.
provide a more detailed response.
And I just have a question, Carter. What is the problem with September 1st?
Several.
I just want people, we just want to hear it.
I'd be happy to jump in.
Okay, thank you.
So, school starts usually you're about that second week of August. We're still hiring new teachers. We're still processing all the new teachers, and to run all of those numbers and bring that back in, it's a hardship just on timing to make sure we get everybody in. I mean, we've sent out the Google Docs, people reply, but it's processing time to turn that around and make sure. Now, we've gotten much better. We don't have anywhere near the kind of issues we had the first year we did it. I think what we've done has made that more efficient, but it's still, it's a push to get all of those in and get it out. And then once I verify all of that, then we've got to get it to payroll for them to process and turn around and payroll. And it's a timing thing. So,
Years of service when they're bringing them in from,
and they have 90 days to bring in their years of service. So we have people who are bringing in years of service after they get hired. We're after the first millage payment before we even get some of those
and that
people's.
wouldn't even apply to them because they didn't teach the previous year,
But we had current employees who didn't turn in verification of experience forms, or turned them in years ago. Prior to me being here, I can't speak for the previous system, but then we get this, my numbers aren't right, we've done that. Now, I think over the last 3 years, we've cleared up the majority of those, so I don't think that's gonna be as big an issue, but it's just a time crunch to then turn around 1,100 people and make sure we have all of that and get it to payroll. So,
it goes fast those first couple of weeks.
right, and we're kind of busy, so that would, another month would be awesome. It makes it easier to make sure we have all that in place. So,
And with that comment in mind, there's nothing that precludes you from paying it out earlier.
right.
Because it's always been on the exact date. So if it was extended, there's nothing that would say, you know what, we can get it out on,
Right.
okay, right?
September 15th or whatever, if we had a little more time, but we're pushing it right up to the end for me to get that done, to get it to payroll, to get out to this.
And there's nothing that requires it to be paid out in a paycheck. It could be paid out in a separate check. We've done that before. Which,
You can blend it in a regular run, we've done that before.
but is it easier to do that, or is
Well,
it easier to coincide it with a
I would
paycheck?
have to ask Amy, but I know that for separating it out, it's easier to cross-check, whereas you have regular payroll and those issues that we have to deal with at the same time, making sure that
Right.
that is correct, so.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be linked to a pay
So you can
period,
put it in the regular run, we can do that.
but it doesn't have to be.
If you separate it out, I believe you will pay more taxes.
Okay,
It's beneficial for you to blend it with a regular run, because then it falls to whatever rate, you're paying based on your exemptions and all that
Okay.
status and all that stuff.
So one other question. You're going to be submitting your proposal, so is this proposal that you submitted tonight, is that withdrawn? Or what,
we just have to correct it.
you have to, okay.
We have to put the dates in there, which is what we have to discuss.
Well, that's
This is the salary, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
this is the monetary
Monetary is fine.
proposal.
Pay per performance.
Yeah.
That's fine
So-
as is.
So those
So-
numbers are,
These are,
Yeah, those are our numbers that we crunched, and we believe after crunching and re-crunching, that they satisfy that statute, but that's your due diligence to
we'll do
double
that on our
check.
part.
Yeah.
Right, because that's just the same courtesy that we asked for in the last session, so we're happy to reciprocate the ask.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, anything else?
So they'll be sending a
They'll be sending-
revised millage MOU.
Article
Correct.
8, so do we have Article 8 to sign?
We have Article 8, yep.
Let's do that.
Any word on the approval from the state with the
Thank you.
increase in tutoring? Have we heard anything?
I asked just a few days ago, and we had not received an answer yet.
I actually, I can speak for once in the meeting. Dr. White sent an email tonight stating that it was approved. So starting
great.
October 31st, so an email should go out probably tomorrow from principals.
Excellent.
I have it right here.
Yes. Read it into the record.
What's today's date? 25?
Two good minutes, yeah, we'll take it.
Excellent.
All right, we'll see you next Tuesday.
It starts October 31st, Karen.
All right.
I think we're done. Thank you.
There you go.